What if I told you the next task at hand is going to be expensive, it's going to be a lot of hard work, and if you screw up, everybody's going to see it? That's doing paint work. A lot of folks get intimidated to do this because of that reason. And I get it. It's completely understandable. But there is a few things that if you consider, well, you can have some success at it. We've got a little paint project that I'm going to do today. I just wanted to stop for a minute and kind of encourage you guys to step out there and try to pick up a paint gun and try to have some fun with it. Because it's super satisfying to step back and look at what you've done when it turns out right. To be able to say somebody, oh yeah, I did that, and them go, dude, that's awesome. Makes you feel good on the inside. And that is totally doable with a few little tips and tricks. If you're interested in this kind of stuff, you dig cool cars, you're gonna like what we're gonna be doing today. Well, this is a 33 Ford that we're just now beginning to do. It's in bare steel. We're gonna have to clean it, sand it, prep it, all that kind of stuff, and then spray on some epoxy primer like we have with those parts over there. Now, this is way more than to get into in a short little film, so we're not gonna be doing this type of thing. I wanna walk over to the other side of the shop to kind of show you what other stuff we got. There's just something about shiny car. Now, a lot of folks are gonna say, man, I'm a patina guy, I don't like shiny cars. Have you ever thought about how they don't sell patina cars as new cars? They sell every new car comes with a paint job. I'm not saying it's worth more. I'm just saying general consensus is people like shiny stuff. I like things that are shiny. I mean, I'm not saying it has to be worth a bunch to impress everybody, but I'm just saying there's just something about a car that's got that mile deep paint job. Now, is it easy? Nope. But there are a couple of things if you're looking to paint your ride that you may want to consider. It's like a crawl, walk, run. Now, this old car over here, the old 49 Chevy, it has just standard paint on it, meaning there's no twinkle, there's no sparkles, nothing like that. It's just red paint. This, a solid color, is a lot easier to spray and it lay out correctly than a metallic color or a candy color. One of the most complicated ones is gold and silver. Now, you can look at this car. We've spent hours upon hours and upon hours to make this thing look like it does. And I can get real close to the sparkly paint and woo! I'm not gonna lie, guys, I've sprayed gallons and gallons of material and that color actually had me worried. But it worked out. Luckily for us, everything kind of flowed together like it was supposed to, and it looks like $1,000,000. So if you're just starting off, you might want to stay away from pearls, candies, and those ultra high metallics. Now, this car over here, it's kind of a candy apple red like a lot of folks always reference. This one isn't extremely complicated, but it's a heck of a color. Now with reds, there is one thing that is kind of odd about them. Whenever you start painting a color like this, or even that one over there, a red is a translucent color, meaning you put 2 coats of red on this one and you put 17 coats of red on the hood, that hood is gonna be redder. Now with black, it doesn't really work that way. White doesn't really work that way. You have to make sure that you get it up to color, but with red, the more coats you put on, the redder it gets. Don't ask me how I know. Now, I'm not really going to get into the big debate about, is it patina? That's what makes patina great, blah, 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 blah. Patina is cool. Patina has, on the right vehicle, is awesome. But it's not for everybody. Are you guys a patina guy? Are you a guy that likes all shiny paint? One thing that I have found, let me get inside of here, whoop, that oftentimes happens, the guys who don't like shiny paint and prefer patina is the ones who aren't willing to pay for a nice paint job. Now, don't get all worked up about money and saying, like, start throwing stones and all that, because I get it. We charge a lot of money for a lot of paint, because it takes a lot of work to do it. And the material we use is expensive. Ain't nothing cheap anymore. Y'all know that. So I'm not saying that patina's right, and I'm saying shiny paint's perfect. I'm just saying, y'all do you. Now the canvas that we're gonna be painting today isn't probably what you're anticipating. Probably thinking it's gonna be a fender or a hood, and that's what a lot of folks show you to do. And it makes sense because that's the relative part. I don't have one of them. So I chose something else. And it has another purpose. When we get done, whenever people drive by and see it, they be like, man, that thing right there is so cool. I don't want to just paint something and it kind of set off to the side. So without further ado, let me show you our canvas. I ran off to the local hardware store, one of them big box stores, and picked this thing up. Now the reason I did use this thing is also because it's cheap. This thing's about 30 bucks. It comes already painted, it's clean, and all you gotta do is scuff it down and clean it again, and then you're ready to start spraying. Also, this has curvatures to it, like a car does. Now normally, cars aren't really square, unless you've got one of them new, let's say modern age dumpsters. Now I'm not judging, but if you also notice with this thing, it's got that radius to it. It has a long flat panel on it. It doesn't require any body work. Because heck, check out that reflection. It's pretty sweet. Also, it has a flat surface to it. And whenever you paint this thing up and you put that outside to show it off, somebody like cruising by, they'll be like, I know that dude's a car guy. That's so awesome. I bet he's the coolest guy ever. Like you, not me. You. So let's get this thing prepped out. First order of business is we need to clean it with some glass cleaner and some like wax and grease remover. It's not crazy, but you got to think this thing was handled by a bunch of people. So all we're going to do is grab a couple of rags like this, some paper towels, and then clean it off. We probably ought to go ahead and take this thing apart too. Man, there ain't nothing to that. With that wax and grease remover, I would tell you, I would use some gloves, especially this stuff. I think it's been known to mess with your reproductive system. And by say mess with, I'm not talking about like some of them Hims commercial. Next thing you know what I'm saying. Probably should have got a clean rag. Rookie, preach to that all the time. Make sure to use a clean rag, because otherwise you're just wiping more contaminants on it. And also, it's a good idea to like pour it onto your rag. Don't put your rag over top of there, because if there's contaminants on here, it'll backwash into there. Turn this thing around. It's pretty clean. You can tell it's nice and dry. Surprised my gloves aren't whistling, going. You gotta scuff this thing up. You gotta make sure that the paint is stick. So all I'm using is one of these. That's a red scuff pad. A few different manufacturers make them, but all you gotta do is rub her down. Not a whole lot to it. This thing having all that new paint on it, you just kind of knock the shine of it off. We're not gonna spend a whole lot of time to this, because it shouldn't take much. Now, if you're gonna use this thing and kind of hang it out for display, make sure to get all of them little nooks and crannies. That ensure that the paint will stick. You could use sandpaper here if you got some. I would use probably 400 to 600. I wouldn't go any coarser or any finer than that. That'll help to make sure that it's got enough scratches in it that the paint will stick good, and not scratches so deep that it'll show up in your paint job. Shoot, I think we're pretty good. Now, I'd clean it again. You don't really have to do the wax and grease remover again unless you just kind of want to, because if that Scotch-Brite was clean, everything else should be clean. This should do good enough, if you know what I mean. So, just give it a quick little rub down. Oh yeah. Now also, it's a good idea to make sure your surface around you. Now a lot of times whenever you're painting, you can't stress this enough. You gotta get the car clean and you gotta get this clean, because most of the time, or a lot of times, the contaminants, the little like dirt and debris, the little nibs and all that show up, it either comes off the car or it comes off of you. Sometimes you can like wash the car after you sand it real good, let it set and dry. That's always a good practice. We got to do a little bit of masking. We've got the little hole here on the side of this thing. When you're putting paint on and you take on your car, and if you pull the door handles and the door locks off, you're going to blow paint inside of that opening when you come across there. And when that happens, it pushes air into that hole and then it has to come out of that hole. So sometimes it pushes dirt and debris out of the door jamb, out of the window sill, that kind of thing. So just by simply going like this and blocking that hole off, the material can't go in it. Therefore, dirt and debris can't come out of somewhere else. Also, that didn't work. Yeah, it did. I raised that up off of the floor of this piece of paper, basically so whenever I paint, I don't glue this thing to my paper. Okay, so it's clean, it's scuffed, and you're probably thinking, it's time to spray. Well, you're kind of right, but you got to think about the color you're trying to end up with. Now, what I'm referring to is this surface here can actually determine what the end color is going to look like. If you start with a black, now normally what happens, it will make a color look deeper and richer, where if you start with a white, that makes it a bit more vibrant and pop. You know what I'm talking about. Sometimes it's a good idea to start with a nice warm gray or a medium gray. That kind of gives you that middle of the road in a way. And that's what we're going to do here. Sometimes whenever you're looking at colors, there will be some that tell you must start with a white substrate or a black substrate. And that's because it actually affects what it's going to look like or the outcome of it. The color we're going with, the gray, should put us right where we need to be. Now it's time to pull the trigger. Kinda. You've got to adjust this thing. If you want perfection, you need to know how this little tool works. Now you've got usually about 3 knobs on it, maybe 4, and you need to know what they do. First one is this one, the one all the way up top. Sometimes you run into, it's actually here on the side, and that is your fan. That's the little spot here whenever the paint comes out. It'll either be real wide or it can be kind of straight. You dial this in or out to adjust it the way you need it. And then the next one is this one right here. And if you'll notice, it's in line straight through here. That is your fluid needle. You can take and cram this thing in, and kind of what happens, let me show you what I'm talking about. As I turn that dude in, it pushes the throttle or the trigger forward. So if you turn it all the way in, that limits the amount of the opening inside of the little tip here, limiting the fluid as it passes through. Now, the other two is going to be your air. Now, this gun has a little dial here or knob right here in the base of it, and it's a regulator so that if you just have a hose connected to it. I like to run one with a gauge on it so that I know the amount of pressure kind of flowing through the gun. So with that said, this one isn't turned in, it's turned all the way out here inside of the gun body. And then the one here is what I use to regulate everything. Now for demonstration purposes, we're going to use some just standard old distilled water, and I'll show you how all these adjustments kind of play or how they work. Now, this is just distilled water. nothing high proof. We'll pour it in there. And we'll make sure that we have plenty. Whoop. I would not recommend drinking this after the fact. Now with some air pressure, we'll hook a hose up. Now I've got it up here against the back. Jeez, all the pressure. First thing we'll show, which is the most easiest, is your little dial here. You can crank that thing up, and you need to do it with the trigger being pulled. Now normally whenever you're spraying anything, it can be within about 15 pounds to about 30 pounds, depending on the material. And sometimes that's feel, sometimes, again, it's the material you're trying to spray. We're gonna crank it down to that 15 for this demonstration of what we got going on. Now with that air pressure, it kind of breaks up the material coming out. Higher the pressure, usually the smaller the droplet. But that's something, that's a whole lot more. Let's say that's gun setup number 2. So with this thing going, spraying, we've got this fluid dialed all the way in. I'm pulling the trigger all the way and it's basically stopped. So as you crank this thing out, you will notice material starting to come out. The way I like to run this thing is I will pull the trigger all the way, and then you'll notice that the knob's turning and nothing on the trigger is happening. So I turn it to where it just bottoms out. Some guys have this thing almost falling out back here and they want that fluid all the way up. And then this thing kind of works as a graduated scale. You have a single stage, which is just air, and then if you go past that, fluid starts to come out. So if you need just a little material, you just kind of feather it in and then you throw it to it once you pull the trigger all the way. Now the one up top is the one I was talking about, is adjusting the fan. You dial it in and it usually has like a pencil type setup, where if you pull it and start opening it up, you'll see where it starts to get wide. Now, you always have guys that end up taking and trying to adjust the fan and all this stuff and painting on the wall, and that's all swell and good, and I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but I'm just gonna say, as a guy who owns a paint booth, make sure that the paper's big enough that you're not painting half the wall. It looks bad, and just a couple more pieces of paper doesn't have all that on there. Now also, you wanna make sure to adjust your fan to what you're trying to paint. Now with us and what we're painting, this little bitty thing, there's no reason to have a fan that's like 12 inches wide. You can dial it in to have it kind of a medium fan, and that usually works pretty well. So we're pretty much ready with what we got going on here to start spraying. Let me adjust that back to the medium. Now, as I was saying, the medium, we'll dial it all the way in. All right, it should be a pencil. And then as you start cranking it out, it gets wider and wider. Pay attention to it. As soon as that fan stops getting wider, you can come in just a taste. That's usually the maximum set on this particular gun. So that's a good place to begin with. It takes a little fine tuning, but that's usually pretty roughed in. Now we wanted that medium, so I dialed it in about a 1/2 to 3/4 turn. And some guns have a little graduated scale or numbered system back here on the back, and you can really keep up with those type of settings. You'll find out where you like it, keep it there, and then you know how to come back to it. Oh yeah, slick as water. Now we gotta clean this gun out pretty good, obviously, because it's got water in it. No big deal. Another good idea right before you paint is to tack this thing off. That refers to a cloth that they have that's kind of sticky. If there's any dust or debris that is settled or stuck on here, you can rub that on there and it will basically wipe it all off, wipe the surface clean. And I also like to tack off the paper just in case there's something laying on here. Well, you get it out of the way. We're pretty much ready to start spraying with our little old gun here. Now I dialed this thing back as I mentioned to you guys earlier, and what the plan is to actually apply one nice medium coat and have about 50% overlap. And what that refers to is we're probably gonna have us a spray pattern about that wide. So if this thing is 6 inches, you go up about 3 and then you catch it again. And you just continue that all the way over. Oftentimes it works really well if you think of whatever you're painting as a grid, so that if this line goes here, you go 50% up, so on and so forth, and do that over the entire surface. That helps to ensure that you get adequate coverage, a 100% coverage, and nice and even. That's what you're looking for. So without further ado, I'm gonna flip a switch, turn the booth on so they can take everything bad out of here, pull it that way, and we can start spraying.
Round 1.
Another good idea, if you're spraying a metallic color especially, is to make sure it's thoroughly mixed. We've got a paint shaker, so we just put it on there and it does the wiggling, giggling for quite a while, and that makes sure that all the metallics are equally distributed into that liquid. You got to think about that stuff. These materials, basically they settle, and solid colors are a lot easier to mix thoroughly because it's just the color itself. But whenever you have that metallic settles here on the bottom, and a lot of times you can take and kind of flip the can to the side if you've got enough room in the can and kind of see if it's silver up under there. And if it is, that tells you everything isn't mixed enough yet. So just keep stirring if you got to do it the old school way, or put it back on the shaker for a few minutes. I'm gonna get this mixed and then we're gonna spray it on, and we're gonna basically do it the exact way we applied color or that sealer onto that thing. So let's see what color this is. starting to perspire. Now, you guys were paying attention just then. Let me get this over here first. Whew. Get a little ventilation going. Yeah, it's hot. Not crazy, it just shows like 80, but when you're wearing a garbage bag, let's just say the humidity rises. Everything's kind of gooey. Either way, let's get back to painting. Now, while we were just spraying there, we put 3 coats of base on, and nice even coats. You might notice on that first coat that you could see through the paint, and it was actually a little blotchy. That's really okay, because the first coat, you're just trying to get some color on there, and if you miss a spot, like I did, well, that's okay. You don't want to get 100% coverage, 100% surface area on the first coat, because you're just kind of flirting with the risk of running everything into the floor. And also, whenever you're stacking that much material, you're putting a whole lot of material on. It's a whole lot easier to do nice light coats than to just pile one of them on there. So we did that 3 like I was talking about. You put the first one on, and then I always like to come back in and just see if I'd missed a spot, like I did right there on the top of that handle. With that inspection, it goes a long ways, because that you have to make yourself a mental note, like, oh, I gotta make sure I gotta get this, make sure I get that, so on and so forth. Now, if you'll notice, I'm also kind of a painter that I kind of choke the gun back a little bit. I'm not like fire hosing that stuff like some guys are, because the way I paint is what I call deliberate. I make sure that I paint every nook and cranny with just enough material, and then it seems to work for me. Now, I did that first coat. I waited about, I don't know, 10 minutes or so, and then you can do that quick little test where you just tap the surface with your glove or your finger to see if there's any material on it. Now, you want to catch it just as soon as it gets to that position, and then you can apply your next coat. If you wait too long, the surface can get really kind of too dry, and when you put that next coat on, man, it's like you're starting fresh again. Whenever you catch it in that window, that next coat just seems to just burn in like butter. And if you get on it too fast, well, you can run into solvent popping where you're trapping too much material or too much solvent inside of there. Then you have to wait and let it dry. But that's a whole nother story. First coat on, nice and even, stop, look, see if you missed any spots. Mental note, apply the second one, take care of your spots that you missed, wait again, check it. When you're ready, put that third coat on, nice and evenly. And with a metallic color, it's usually a good idea to do what they say, a drop coat or a blend coat. If you'll notice, I step back from the thing about double the amount of distance, and I kind of just fogged one in there. It's a nice way to say it. What that does is once you get that coat on, this other one kind of blends all those strokes in together, and it really helps metallics kind of even out. And it's also sometimes a good idea whenever you go on that last coat is the material is you step up your reducer a little bit, what's called a slower evaporating for the next hotter temperature. That helps the surface stay wet a little longer, and those metallics kind of find their home in nooks and crannies, get settled in good like some in-laws. And then now it's ready for clear coat. We're gonna let this thing kind of the booth spin for a few minutes to let everything dry off real good. I'm gonna mix up some clear, and then finally we can spray on some shiny. And that's whenever that base coat pops. Woo! What y'all think about that color? Is this something y'all would pick? Yeah. Is it a GM color? Is it a Ford color? I'm curious if you guys can guess what brand it is. Not like, can you hand me the paint code? Few of you guys have seen this color before. Promise you. It's not a custom mix. We might call it a custom mix though. We may call it, let me think on it. Anyhow, let me get some clear mixed up. You know, there's nothing quite like setting this thing out in the sun and just looking to see what that color looks like. Now, I'm not going to tell you the paint code on this thing, but I'm going to say this is quite a color. It could be Ford, it could be Chevy, or it could be even Mopar. If you think you know what it is, let me know. Now, the orange peel on here, before you guys get to hating on me, that's really just a compound of that factory color that they put on there. Because if you remember, all we did was scuff that black down. We could have made it slicker, but it's just a mailbox. You know, after we sit and let this thing kind of dry out there, you know, waiting on paint to dry, I come up with an idea. And what I would like to do, if you guys will do it, is I want to fill this thing up. If you have a car story and got some photos of that thing, please mail it to me to that address. Yep. And what our plan is here, we're going to have us some bench racing and read that thing and tell your story on one of these shows and show off what you guys have or had. You know, even if it's a buddy of yours car, whatever the story is, if it's fun and if it makes you like happy, sad, whatever, please mail it to me. I'm just thinking, you know, nobody really does this type of thing anymore. You know, I'm not trying to keep the Postal Service in business or nothing like that. Lord knows I've complained about them people dropping stuff off here to me. But it's just an idea we had, you know, just to connect with you guys and with what we're doing. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. You know, you guys clicking along, you're driving us up, and I'm telling you, we're covering some pretty good ground. And we're really, really close to reaching that 100,000 mark. And I never imagined we'd be this close in this short amount of time. And if you guys don't mind, share the news. Whenever we post something, share it and make some comments, because that stuff helps the algorithm, and that is what we're trying to do. And y'all know the saying, y'all keep it between the ditches. Man, that blue is nice. Can't drop that.